All right, everybody, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report, and I am very excited today because it is December 17th, 2025. We arrived from Communist Cali to the free state of Florida 4 years ago today. Yes, it is our 4-year anniversary. Brought 2 companies here, our family, a lot of, flourishing people who want to do good in the world, who couldn't take it anymore in that totalitarian dictatorship under Gavin Newsom. And we got here, and I know I've showed you this before, but my friend David Sachs, who's been on the show many times, who's now the AI crypto czar in the administration, he was kind enough. It was the first time any of us had been on a private plane. He lent us his plane because we did not want to put Clyde, our dog, underneath. And here we are, I'm sitting in the jump seat in the cockpit just as we landed 4 years ago today in the free state of Florida.
20, 10, 5.
And I've told you guys before, it was like a weight lifting off my chest. And obviously, you know, these last 4 years have truly been the best 4 years of my life, and we've built so many great things here. And I think it's worth it to fight against things, which is what I was doing, you know, when they're bad, which is what I was doing in Cali. But I really like fighting for things when they're working, which is what I'm doing here in the free state of Florida. So it's an exciting time. Also yesterday, as you know, we were not live in studio because I was in DC for the White House Hanukkah party. But before I show you a quick video on that, I sat down with about a dozen Congress people and senators. There I am with Lisa McClain, Kat Kammack, Dan Crenshaw, Chip Roy, Nancy Mace, John Kennedy, Ro Khanna, the only Democrat who will talk to me, even though we disagreed on a whole bunch of stuff, Marsha Blackburn, Tim Burchett, and Jim Jordan. So those will all be going up in the next little bit. They were kind of bite-sized 12 to 15-minute interviews about, you know, they're all in the same position right now, just trying to wrap things up before they get out of town. So they've got like this deadline that they know everybody's going home for Christmas. Can they get some things done? I don't want to tease too much because you should watch the interviews, but one of the interesting things that kept popping up, because I asked everybody about, you know, how worried they are about the midterm elections, which obviously at the moment don't look like they're going to go too well, and that's just the nature of politics, incumbent president, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them had the same answer, which is that once the big, beautiful bill kicks in, people see more money in the pocket, the economy starts kind of opening up a little bit, tax breaks kick in, et cetera, that actually might really change some facts on the ground. So we will see. I went to the White House Hanukkah party yesterday, which was, it was really, really fantastic. And Donald Trump is a true friend of the Jews who could use some friends at the moment. And yes, I got the shout out.
Dave Rubin.
That was pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I guess I'm glazing myself a little bit, but that was pretty, you know, you go to the president's house and he says your name, you know, that's pretty cool. It was really, they had some of the hostages' families there, American family members of some of the hostages who did not get out, so that was very powerful. There was also a really, really beautiful moment. I don't know if there must be video online somewhere of it, but there was a woman sitting in the front row, right in front of Trump. You can't quite see her in that video because she was in a wheelchair. She was a 100-year-old Holocaust survivor, and Trump shouted her out by name, and she just started talking, and Trump moved away from the podium and let her talk. And she said a whole bunch of things, but the most powerful thing I thought was that she said that when she was 14 years old and her family was being taken away by the Nazis, could she have ever imagined that one day she would be 100 years old, sitting just steps away and talking to the President of the United States? So it was a very powerful moment, and nice to be there. And all right, let's get to the program today. We're going to start with some media madness. I'm going to defend a good friend of mine. You know, it's been an interesting couple of weeks here, watching some people that I thought were pretty good and that I called friends kind of go batty. And then, you know, you have to start looking at everybody with maybe a little bit of a more curious eye. But one of the people who I've really come to love over the last couple of years, who's been on a very similar political journey as me from the left to this kind of wide tent right, is Jillian Michaels. And if you don't, you should know Jillian Michaels. I'm sure you do. We do Actual Friends podcast together, but she's been a fitness coach for years, an influencer and all of those things. She's got great abs for a chick about my age. Anyway, she was on Piers Morgan's show with this guy, Wahajat Ali, who I've been on there with a couple of times, who's just an Islamist sympathizer and really quite an awful human being. And he called Jillian a white nationalist, and watch how it worked out.
Talking points are from 2001, which is why I yawned. The DeLorean right now is in 2025. Listen, I've been in this for a long time, Jill. I know you're just discovering this. Congratulations.
I think I've also.
Let me just finish.
Okay,
I let you say a lot of hateful,
Wajahat.
stupid, reckless things about Muslim and Islam. I sat there and,
would you like to say one?
I just sat there.
That's 20 million people.
Jillian, you are
you still
by
have
your own
16
admission.
dead, Wajahat.
You by your own admission are a white nationalist. You by your own admission. That's what you are, a white nationalist. You admitted it.
I'm a white
I saw the
you know
clip.
I'm Arab, right?
The number
I'm
one
Syrian and
domestic terror
Lebanese and
threat-
Turkish.
Okay,
And
you're the
so-
one.
Do you see how pathetic these people are, right? Like, all he's got is you're a white nationalist. She's Syrian and Turkish and Lebanese. She also happens to be a lesbian. That's a sidebar, but I don't know how many white nationalist lesbians there are, so that would be a hell of a bar to go to. But it's just profoundly absurd, as if she said, yes, I'm a white nationalist. She's not a white nationalist. She's been a progressive and a lefty the entire time. Of course, Wahajat Ali is always concerned about the people who perpetrate the acts of terrorism, never the people who are actually dead. But in case you haven't seen that guy before, you may have missed this clip that we showed of him about 10 days ago, where he did this video basically saying that he, as a brown person, a Pakistani immigrant, is here to outbreed you white people.
You have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. And I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1965. There were a few of us beforehand.
Well, I will agree with one thing you said there, Wajahat, which is that we did make a mistake by letting you in. You're a Pakistani immigrant. I think your parents are first generation, but we should not be letting people like you in. I don't mean all people from Pakistan, but people who come to this country to hate this country. And you are so proud that you as a brown person will outbreed the white people. By the way, it probably is true. Like, in a literal sense, it's probably true that brown people are outbreeding white people at the moment. But why would you care about that unless you were racist, which is what you are? So my friend Jillian Michaels is the furthest thing from a white supremacist and a racist. She is a I would say, almost over the top, thoughtful, decent, human being who is a defender of true liberalism. Your parents from Pakistan were arrested for software privacy fraud, and after being in the US for 50 years, and they birthed you, so. Anywho, the reason I wanted to start with that clip was not only to defend my friend Jillian Michaels from that nonsense, and as I said to Jillian after, stop. This is a message for any of my friends that are influencers. Stop doing Piers' stupid show. I told Piers, I told him when we were in this room, you want to do one-on-ones with me, man, that's fine. But that, to be on these panels with a series of Islamists and Marxists and America-hating lunatics, it does nothing except put money in his pocket. And I'm pretty sure Piers has got enough cash. Anyway, the reason I'm starting with all that is because one of the big media story that broke over the last couple of days is that Vanity Fair did an unbelievable hit piece on Susie Wiles, who's basically she's the White House chief of staff. She's one of the people that has really brought in this incredible team around Trump. It's why there aren't a ton of leaks with this administration. It's why things have been really run in I would say, almost 180-degree different direction than the first time, where there were all sorts of staffing problems and leaks and everything else. So Vanity Fair did a crazy, crazy hit piece on her. So let's start with this from Vanity Fair. One time we spoke while she, Susie Wiles, was doing her laundry in her Washington, D.C. rental. Trump, she told me, has an alcoholic's personality. Vance's conversion from never Trumper to MAGA acolyte, she said, has been sort of political. The vice president, she added, has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. When I asked her what she thought of Musk reposting a tweet about public sector workers killing millions under Hitler, Stalin, and Mao, she replied, "I think that's when he's microdosing." Okay, so this article comes out and immediately, and by the way, this is to the backdrop, I think we covered it about a week ago, New York Times did an insane hit piece on my friend who I mentioned at the top of the show, David Sachs, just about a week ago. And then they got just crushed afterwards with people defending him, saying that it was all based on lies and everything else. Anyway, so this hit piece comes out on Susie Wiles. And of course, nobody's surprised that mainstream media is doing a hit piece on someone that's influential in Trump world, particularly someone who's around him so much and making sure that so much of this is actually working. Anyway, Susie Wiles put this up on the Twitter machine. The article published early this morning is disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, the White House staff, and the cabinet in history. Significant context was disregarded, and much of what I and others said about the team and the president was left out of the story. I assume after reading it that this was done to paint an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and our team. The truth is the Trump White House has already accomplished more in 11 months than any other president has accomplished in 8 years, and that is due to the unmatched leadership and vision from President Trump, for whom I've been honored to work with for the better part of a decade. None of this will stop our relentless pursuit of making America great again. You know, it's worth noting that we've all seen this before, right? Like I always pull off, I won't do it right now, but the New York Times front page thing from 5 years ago, which you can just almost see in the corner right over there, where they called me basically the leader of the alt-right. We know that they lie about everything. I've had reporters reach out to do hit pieces on me where they tell me they're literally talking to people that I haven't spoke to in 10 or 15 years, reaching out to people who claim they knew me in high school. Like the entire mainstream media machine is designed to launder the lies and hit people that it doesn't like and elevate people that it does like. Now, what you might say, if Susie Wiles is guilty of anything, is why did she bother talking to them? Like, do we not all know that this is exactly what's going to happen? And I think there's some valid criticism there. And by the way, we all get caught in that. You know, I get all these things, BBC and the New York Times and not CNN. They never talk to me, but a lot of these outlets still reach out to me. And usually what I do, we ignore or write something kind of snarky back, or every now and again, I'll say, well, I will respond to you in writing, but nothing else, because we know that they can selectively edit and everything else. And you want to have, as I always say, you want to have receipts. Anyway, this thing comes out, all hell breaks loose online because Susie has been thought of as just so absolutely competent and such a key piece of the Trump administration. So then the Trump warriors went at it and started going after Vanity Fair. Here is Caroline Levitt.
As for the Vanity Fair article, Michael, I'll take your question directly. This is, unfortunately, another example of disingenuous reporting, where you have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present. And we see a lot of this when dealing with the media every day. You will leave out important context, leave out comments and facts. You know, many people in this building spoke with that reporter, and those comments were never included in the story, probably because it didn't push this false narrative of chaos and confusion that the reporter was clearly trying to push.
You know, it's so interesting what she's saying there. In Don't Burn This Book, my first book, one of the things that I wrote about fake news, and one of the things that I wrote about was that fake news, you know, you think it's, the story's just completely concocted, or it's all anonymous sources, or the headline doesn't match the contents of the article. Like those are kind of the generic or sort of the main ways that you would think that that's what fake news is. But Caroline just referenced what I actually think is the most nefarious type of fake news, which is that it's omission. It's omission, meaning there's something that's happening that's empirically true, it's happening, we all know it's happening, and they just don't cover it. The mainstream media doesn't cover the story because it doesn't fit the racial narrative, or in this case, they left out certain things where Susie was doing a great job, where people said nice things about her, et cetera, because that didn't fit the narrative that they were trying to push. And what they were trying to do was push narrative over truth. Interestingly, somebody put this up. I thought this was quite interesting, because a picture really is worth 1,000 words. And if you want to see one of the ways they operate, when Vanity Fair did a piece on Karine Jean-Pierre, look at her. She's, you know, the way she's standing, the hair, the face, like it's clearly as absolutely flattering as you can possibly be. When they did one on Caroline Leavitt, I think you would say that is slightly less. Can we zoom in any more? Is that even, do we even have the type of lenses that could do that to me? Because if we do, I don't want them in this studio. Anyway, because much of what the piece was about was going after J.D. Vance and that he really wasn't into Trump and he'll change his feelings, you know, he'll just flip on a dime and all that stuff, J.D. did respond.
Conspiracy theorist. Sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills. You know, I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job.
Right. So this is where you guys call us conspiracy theorists, and it just means that kind of we were ahead of the curve. So we don't have to do the long litany of things that the media has lied about. So JD just gets it. And again, this is why this administration is so good, because you've got Trump as the leader just doing the big hits, and he has just basically piloted this aircraft in a beautiful, beautiful way. But then he has a series of people behind him that can communicate messaging that aren't, you know, Caroline Leavitt, not afraid of the media. JD willing to go in and just debunk why he's being called a conspiracy theorist. People like Marco Rubio, like at the highest levels of competency. It's just good across the board. The other thing that I think is good is that while we all, I assume all of us watching this, we want to defend free speech and the First Amendment as much as possible. One of the things that you guys know is we have very, very strict barriers around free speech as it pertains to libel and slander, either written or spoken, absolute proven lies about someone that do reputational damage. And every now and again, these are challenged in court. Well, Donald Trump is suing the BBC for $10 billion for one of perhaps the biggest scandals in modern times. I'm talking about January 6th. Here's Brett Baer on that.
Look at the White House there. President Trump is suing the BBC for $10 billion in damages. He accuses the British broadcaster of defamation as well as deceptive and unfair trade practices. This concerns the way the president's January 6th speech was edited in a BBC broadcast. The president says it was a brazen attempt to interfere in and influence the 2024 election. The BBC says it will defend the case.
Well, I think empirically, I don't know if you can prove it legally, but was it a brazen attempt to affect the election? Absolutely. Was it a 100% lie that what they did? Well, don't take my word for it. Here's the edit.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Yeah, so you could see what they did right there. They made it sound like he was instigating violence while he's talking about cheering on brave congresswomen and senators, et cetera, et cetera. There's also many other videos where they took out parts where he talked about, you know, protesting peacefully and everything else. And let's not forget what happened, within 24 hours of that, Donald Trump was kicked off YouTube. The sitting president of the United States of America was kicked off Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the stuff, Instagram, everything. And so then it's like, who really has the power? Well, he had, I suppose it still said president on his desk for a couple more days, but if the president could not directly communicate with we the people, then who really is in charge? So you might say, okay, you don't love, like, philosophically, I don't love the idea of suing people because of lies, and even suing media companies because of lies, because because people are sarcastic sometimes. We want to have room for jokes. You want to have room for lying, actually, because that's part of free speech. But in this case, this was so worldwide cataclysmic to the future of humanity. We ended up then with Joe Biden and 4 more years of lies and open borders and everything else. 10 billion? Well, we will see what happens. Of course, over on CNN, Mr. Potato Head, a man who was fired for doing a terrible job, then started teaching journalism at Harvard for being terrible at his journalism job, and then went back to do quote unquote journalism again. He's very upset about this lawsuit.
Number one, a year ago, it was unheard of for a sitting American president to file a lawsuit against a news outlet. This never happened before until President Trump returned to office for a second term. But now, this year, he has sued the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and as of this morning, the BBC. So he is charting a new course, trying to take his war against the news media to court. And it's going to be very difficult for him to do so, but he's trying anyway. Even if these lawsuits are just PR stunts, he is getting the headlines he wants. He is charging defamation against the BBC and arguing that Florida is the appropriate venue for a lawsuit. I spoke with numerous legal experts, media law professors overnight who are very skeptical of Trump's chances, in part because it's going to be hard to prove that he was actually damaged in Florida.
Okay, all right. The last part there might be true. Is how could you prove that he was damaged in Florida specifically as per what happened on January 6th? I'm not a legal expert, so I can't speak to that. But is it possible that what Trump is doing here is going, look, I don't know if I'm going to win these things, but I will send a signal. I will send a threat to these. It's sort of what we're doing with the Venezuelan boats. Like there's a signal and a threat, and then hopefully it stops things in the future. It's really interesting, though, when they say the quiet part out loud, because Stelter said his war against news media, that it's Donald Trump's war against news media, except the war is going the other way. In this case, Donald Trump is actually the victim of it. Not only what you guys did around January 6th, but all the lies you put with him around Russia, 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 and very fine people, and being a Nazi and everything else. So there is some legitimacy. I think you can understand my position on this. We want maximum freedom of speech, maximum freedom of expression, and every now and again, maybe somebody like Donald Trump, I guess it's sort of unfortunate that it has to be the president of the United States, but maybe every now and again, someone with the means to fight these people legally is able to take them out because I can't do it. You know, when that article came out that I mentioned earlier, that they called me the head of the alt-right or whatever it was, I spoke to several lawyers, including Harmeet Dillon. What's Harmeet's job right now? She's the head of we'll get it in one second, but she's a well-known constitutional lawyer who has fought Google and big tech for years and everything else. And I called her and I showed it to her, and she said to me, I don't think she would mind me sharing this, that there probably was a case there, but it basically would keep me caught up in series of law forever. There would be endless discovery. My life would be turned upside down on top of the amount of money that I would spend to basically be suing the New York Times. So you just let it go. So maybe every now and again you do need somebody to do something like that. Harmeet is the assistant attorney general at the DOJ. Let me show you one more thing as it relates to this, to the lies of the media. Here is the one sane Democrat in all of the United States of America. Yes, I'm talking about Pennsylvania's John Fetterman. Here he is going after the Democrats, but really the media for shielding Islamic terrorism. So it doesn't matter if they're lying about Susie Wiles or they're lying about Islamic terrorism. It's the same thing. It's ideologically driven.
Mainstream outlets like the New York Times is constantly a strong anti-Israel views on those things, and other media as well, to call it what it is. And now here in my own party, I've been incredibly disappointed, and people are trying to pretend these kinds of words and terms like, from the river to the sea, or to globalize the intifada and all those other things. We all know what this means, and I refuse to pander to that. And now for me, it's been a rot, within the American left and within my party.
I'd much rather they be globalizing the frittata, because there's nothing worse than a frittata in the morning that's been burned. His point is they lie about everything. They lie about everything, and we know they lie, and they know they lie, and you know the Solzhenitsyn quote. So the point is, do we every now and again need somebody to step in and put some sort of legal threat out there? Because they are not going to police themselves. They keep getting away with it. And by the way, when they keep getting away with it, then people believe unbelievably noxious lies. Like, what's the one that I always say is really the big, it's bigger than Russia, Russia, Russia. It was bigger than Hunter Biden laptop. It was the very fine people hoax. And you absolutely could argue that because of the amount of people that thought Donald Trump was saying nice things about white supremacists, that he did lose the elect, to whatever extent he lost the election to Joe Biden in the first place, that maybe that had something to do with it, on top of the fact of that they hid the Hunter Biden laptop and all the other stuff. All right, let's leave that there. Let's talk about Noble Gold for a minute, and then we'll have more on the other side. Guys, gold has officially gone mainstream. Every day, more and more Americans are discovering the power of gold, but how do you actually take advantage of it and invest in a simple way? That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Their specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident. Whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA or want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, secure, and stress-free. You'll get step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a trusted team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. Visit DaveRubinGold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. That is DaveRubinGold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. Okay, so let's dive into... Let's get away from the media for a moment. There's been a bunch of strange things that have happened over the last couple of days, violent, strange things that have been happening across the globe. One of them was the shooting at Brown University, where still as it stands at the moment, we have not been given a name or a full description of the shooter. The shooter who, as I understand it, was it 2 students, right? So here is video of Rhode Island Attorney General. His name is Peter Naranja. On this guy, one of the suspected people. His name is Mustafa Karbouch. And well, just listen to this.
Question about that name. And I know the name that you're asking about because a member of the media asked me about it. I am familiar with it. I wasn't familiar with it when the media member asked me about it. I think it was either CBS or NBC. I asked my team about it, and I think this is an area where caution is really necessary. There are lots of reasons why a page might be taken down, particularly if there's chatter out there about, to your question, Amanda, about words that were spoken. It's easy to jump from someone saying words that were spoken to what those words are, to a particular name that reflects a motive targeting a particular person. That's a really dangerous road to go down. Really dangerous.
Okay, so this guy deserves a gold in the mental Olympics, the mental gymnastics right there. Okay, so we do not know, as it stands right now, I want to be very careful with this. We do not know that this guy, Mustafa Karbouch, did this. However, this guy who was part of the Palestine club at the school and the LGBT club and all of this stuff, his page on the website did get taken down. There's also all people now saying that somebody yelled Allahu Akbar. This is from End Wokeness. Why did Brown University just scrub its entire website of Mustafa Karbouch, who is a Free Palestine LGBTQ activist? I just want to be clear again. I am just repeating the information that has been put out so far. So you have an attorney general who doesn't know why the page was taken down, who's very concerned that if someone says something, you don't want to imply that it means anything. But it does seem that there is something weird going on here. Also, we do now know that the classroom that the Brown shooter went into, although it was an economics class, the professor who teaches in that class was also a professor of Judaic studies. There might be something there. These are just facts that we now know at the moment. Does it all add up to something? Eventually it will. Here is the president of Brown, Christina Paxson, saying she knows nothing about the website, these web pages being taken down. So just to back you up, you have the attorney general saying, okay, these pages came down and you have to be very, very careful. And now the university president is saying she doesn't even know why they were taken down. But as the End Wokeness account just showed you, the guy that they took the pages down of was a Palestine LGBTQ guy. Again, do with that what you will. Here's the Brown president.
Leave some web pages for students or faculty to be taken down. Is that a response to any external threats to anyone in the community?
We have been working very closely with law enforcement to provide them with all of the internal to Brown information that they need to do this investigation. It's their investigation. They're the professionals. So we're providing information. We're not in the job of reviewing it for them. I know nothing about web pages being taken down as part of this. It's the first I've heard of it.
God, she should work in the government because the buck stops with nobody. You're the university president. So who decided to take the page down? Again, I don't know that this guy did it any more than you do. That's where a lot of the fingers seem to be pointing at the moment. And if they for some reason went out of their way to take his pages down, you guys are the one that's making it seem like he is guilty. Anyway, after this press conference, they said that it was taken down to prevent doxing. But why would someone be doxing someone who is innocent? Okay, again, this is just like we're working this through in real time. Here's the Providence police official. Here's a Providence police official dodging a reporter's question about what the shooter yelled.
Did the suspect yell, like has been reported, and there's been some erroneous reporting, but did he yell when he came in the classroom? And how valuable have witness statements been from those who survived?
Listen, my heart goes out to the victims. It goes out to the families, and I'll tell you that their cooperation has been extremely helpful. And that, with that being said, we'll continue, and I'm gonna respect the fact that, and I hope that they get better. And my heart and soul goes out to them. So,
did he yell though?
So that's something that we're investigating. We took statements, and we have to confirm that.
So, sir, you're a police officer at a press conference. Like, how about you answer the question? So we will find out what this guy yelled. As a matter of fact, this from Yahoo News, several media outlets quoted students and other witnesses saying that the shooter yelled Allahu Akbar before opening fire in the building. So I don't know if that is true. That's from Yahoo News. You can take that as it will. Now, something will come out about this because there were survivors. There are other students. They are being anonymously quoted right there. We will find out more. One thing we apparently won't find is video of all of this because there were not video cameras in this hallway. Here is the Attorney General on why there weren't cameras in this particular area.
So there's cameras in the hallway, but they don't show the suspect, or Brown is not releasing them, or you're not releasing them to us. How does a multi-million-dollar school not have a bunch of cameras in the hallway?
So let me try to explain that. So, as President Paxson knows, there was a major addition put on that building within the last 5 years or so. That is a modern building attached to a much older one in the back. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me, at least, that there are cameras in the newer part of the building. And there is video footage, okay? So there's the back part of the building, old part, and front part, new part. The shooting occurs in the old part, towards the back, out towards Hope Street. In that older part of the building, there are fewer, if any, cameras in that location.
You know, I said before this guy should get a gold medal in the mental gymnastics. It's the same thing right there. Like, oh, okay, like I accept that that's an older part of the building, a newer part of the building. Have you guys ever heard of the Ring camera? He just checked on Amazon. You get a Ring camera for $60. How much is Brown's endowment? I'm gonna guess a couple $100 million or something. Like, there's no reason there aren't cameras everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. Okay, what's also, they have an $8 billion endowment, which I'm not a mathematician, but I think they could get at least 20 cameras from Ring on that, okay? That's one thing. The other thing, what you were seeing on the side of that press conference there was video of the guy that they believe is the attacker. Perhaps it is this person. We'll just leave it there. But there is something else interesting there. If you notice, he's wearing the COVID mask, and we have seen huge amounts of these Hamas supporters and Palestine people and queer weirdos for furry domination or whatever it is. We have seen them always wearing these COVID masks. And there is absolutely an argument that COVID masks should be banned in public spaces or in university areas or something, because they are being used not for anything that has anything to do with a virus. And even when COVID was around, we all knew, or sensible people knew, that these masks were nonsense anyway. Suddenly you had to, if you were walking at the restaurant to your table, you had to wear a mask, but when you sat down, you couldn't get COVID in between your French fries. Like, it was all completely absurd, but they are now, in some ways, it feels like, and this, I suppose, is a type of conspiracy theory, that COVID was just a prequel to having a bunch of masked, furry, Palestine queer dingbats shoot people. Here's Brown President Christina Paxson on if they had the proper precaution measures in place.
What is your response to parents as well who said they pay a lot of money for their kids to go to Brown? They're questioning the cameras, why the sirens didn't go off. Do you believe that Brown had the precautions and safety measures in place before the shooting that were appropriate and necessary?
I do. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned the sirens because I think there's been some misinformation about that. We have two security systems that we can activate in time of an emergency. One is a system that sends out text messages, phone calls, emails, and it was activated within minutes of the incident. Those messages went out to 20,000 individuals, so all alerts. We also have a system of sirens. There are 3 sirens placed across campus. Those get activated when there is a broad-scale emergency and we want people to rush into buildings. In the case of an active shooter, activating that system could have caused people to rush into Barris and Hawley. So that's not a system that we would ever use in the case of an active shooter.
All right, look, you know my position on this. There are no perfect systems. Humans make the systems, and humans are imperfect. And people can always test what the boundaries are. They can push and pull and figure out ways to work around anything. So even in the best, most secure place ever, which a college university cannot be, because you're going to have all sorts of people walking in and out, and do you want armed guards at every door and everything else? You didn't have cameras, lady, because it was an older building. Again, Ring cameras, $60 on Amazon. Same day shipping? Same day shipping, okay? You could get them today, lady, but I'm gonna guess that you won't. Anyway, so we'll find out more about this, but I think it's sort of a perfect story of weird leftist ideology, potentially some of the Palestine queer Hamas stuff, ineptitude at our places of higher education. You know, there's just so much weirdness around it. But to end it, at least in a somewhat amusing fashion, here's the sign language lady during the press conference.
There is no footage. I'll try to say it again. There is no footage that depicts this individual.
Listen, I'm not a sign language expert, but I think she was making that shit up. Try to listen to what he's saying and tell me how she's conveying that via sign language.
There is no footage. I'll try to say it again. There is no footage that depicts this individual.
According to Polymarket, the Brown shooter will be arrested by December 19th. That's what 26% of the people are saying. By December 31st, end of the year, 50%. So we will see what happens. I do want to connect this to something else because, you know, this is all to the backdrop, obviously. It's been, I would say, in the 2+ years since October 7th, we've seen sort of the embers of worldwide jihad sort of burst forth across the globe, you know, Western Europe particularly. Then we had this absolutely horrific Christmas attack in Australia, in Sydney, just a couple days ago. Then we have this attack in Brown. Again, we will see what the motives are. We will see what the guy yelled and what his allegiances were and everything else. But then there was another very, very bizarre thing at an elite school here in America that happened over the last day or two. This is from ABC. A professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, has been shot and killed in his home, authorities said. Nuno F.G. Lareo, 47, was found Monday night at his house in upscale Boston in a suburb of Brookline. He was taken to the hospital with gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead on Tuesday, the Norfolk District Attorney's Office said. The DA's office said the homicide investigation is ongoing. So look, we have no idea what the motive is on that one, who did it. Doesn't mean it was terrorism, could have been a domestic dispute. We will find out more. But from a professor being shot at MIT to students, and one of the girl who is dead, what's her name? I should know it. Ella Brooke, who was the president of the conservative group on campus. I mean, that sounds very like a targeted assassination. We will find out more. To the backdrop of 2 years of Columbia and Yale and Harvard and the places that are supposed to be our most elevated places of learning becoming actual indoctrination centers for the worst ideologies of all time and anti-Western thought, and designed to create a revolution that will destroy America. It's like, we better do something about this because we are running out of time. Europe probably is out of time. Australia may be out of time. We're not quite out of time yet, and we were born in revolution and we have weapons. We're a different beast here in America. So we will see. But listen to this stark warning from Elon Musk back in April of 2023 as it relates to sending your kids to schools where they will be indoctrinated.
The amount of indoctrination that's happening in schools and universities is, I think, far beyond what parents realize. Let me give you an example that a friend of mine told me, which his daughters go to high school in the Bay Area, and he was asking them, like, who are the first few presidents of the United States? They could name Washington, and I said, well, what do you know about him? Well, he was a slave owner. What else?
Right. Exactly.
Nothing.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's maybe you should know more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slavery is obviously a horrific institution, but we should still know more about George Washington than.
Yeah, you know what you might want to know about George Washington? That George Washington not only was the first president of the United States and had wooden teeth, which I've seen, I think, at the Smithsonian, and they've got the other set of them at his house outside D.C., but that he was also the general in the Revolutionary War, and he led the army. So he was leading the army while he was the president of the United States. And guess what? The people wanted him to stay on and do both. And he, in true foresight and benevolence, said, I will not do both because it will not be a good way for this country to be born, that the president of the United States is also the leader of the military. But did he own slaves? He did. And when you go to his home, they talk about how when he died, his half of the slaves were freed, but Martha, his wife, she was still living, hers weren't. These are the things that are complexities of our time that we better offer a little grace to our forefathers, because I hate to think what the people 40 years from now will think of our barbaric ways. So of course Elon is right. You send your kids to these places, and maybe 40 years ago they were teaching the right things, and they were teaching how to think, not what to think, and all of that. But now they are basically indoctrination centers. And then the other part of this is, 10 years or so ago, when I was one of the first people, me and Jordan Peterson and definitely Charlie Kirk and a few others, when we were going to college campuses and we were talking about what was going on there, everyone would say, all of our critics would say the exact same thing. Oh, you guys, you're just making fun of college kids. But when they get out, the real world will just smack them in the face and show them what's up. And as I've said many times, well, what happened? Well, they got into the real world, and the real world folded like a wet paper bag. So we really have something to fight. Fortunately, we've got a guy in the Oval Office who's fighting on all fronts. So we're going to jump to Venezuela in just a second. But first, Morgan and Morgan. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, your injury could actually be worth millions, and most people have no idea. Insurance companies love to lowball claims, offering way less than what you deserve. That's why there's Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys across 50 states. They've been fighting for people for more than 30 years, and they don't settle for lowball offers. Just recently, they won $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philadelphia, and $6.8 million in New York, all way above what insurance companies offered. And the best part, it's completely free unless you win. No upfront costs, no hidden fees. It takes only a couple minutes to see if you have a case. Did you know you can start a claim with America's largest injury law firm in just one click? It's super easy. Just go to forthepeople.com/Rubin or click the link in the description and pin comment. By the way, just a non sequitur altogether, I do want to thank everybody for the kind words. I was really under the weather a couple of days ago when I did the show. I had to really slog through it, and even yesterday at the White House wasn't feeling great. I'm still a little congested, you could probably hear, but I read a lot of comments, and people offered all sorts of home remedies and all kinds of things, and thank you for that. All right, so let's jump over to Venezuela, because the bombing of terrorist narcotic boats has escalated. Listen to this on Truth from President Donald Trump. That's a condensed version of what he wrote. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets they previously stole from us. The illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. For the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, the Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, today, I am ordering a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going into and out of Venezuela. The illegal aliens and criminals that the Maduro regime has sent into the United States during the weak and inept Biden administration are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. America will not allow criminals, terrorists, or other countries to rob, threaten, or harm our nation. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald J. Trump. Okay, so there's some interesting stuff here. Look, obviously we've had a couple weeks of blowing up some of these narco-terrorist boats that are bringing all sorts of drugs to our shores. And what did I say on day one of it? It's a signal, and once people start getting the signal, they'll start doing less. So actually, I talked to several people in DC yesterday. Some of the congressmen and senators that I interviewed had just come from a hearing about it where they were seeing some of the classified video and all this stuff. And they were saying, well, the boats aren't coming now because once you blow up a couple boats, then the guys who are about to get on the boat are like, well, actually, I've got a haircut at 3. So they just aren't going to do it. So that is what Trump is a master of, signal. So even now, right, whatever Trump is doing with this blockade and saying, okay, oil's not getting in, getting out, et cetera, it's a signal to Maduro. He's trying to starve the regime. Now, you can like that or not like it or anything else, but I think Donald Trump has been so consistently good as it pertains to international affairs and wrapped up what most people say is 7 or 8 wars, at least temporarily, because usually these things are just temporary. It's like, I think this guy deserves a pretty decent leash here. And it's not just that we are going to have this kind of lockdown around Venezuela, and we'll see what kind of pressure that puts on Maduro. Here's Marco Rubio making it clear that if you hop in a boat and you try to bring drugs to America, we still going to whoop your ass.
To engage with Congress on this. We're headed to the House now to do a similar briefing and provide updates on this counter-drug mission, which is focused on dismantling the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations that are operating in our hemisphere, undermining the security of Americans, killing Americans, poisoning Americans. And this has been a highly successful mission that's ongoing and continued, and we're pleased to be here today to update Congress on how that's developing and how that's moving forward. As I said, I believe it's our 22nd, 23rd such engagement, certainly been at least the 4th or 5th that I've been involved in, and those will remain and be ongoing.
As I always say about this guy, he was just born for this job. He's ready. He's just a clear communicator of all of the right things. And again, he was a huge, him and Trump hated each other. You remember those debates when Trump was just demolishing him and everything else. And they've come around because they both love this freaking country. And I think he's an unbelievably effective communicator for the policies of the American administration. A guy who I would say is slightly less than that is Democrat Chuck Schumer. And as always, what are the Democrats always worried about? They're never worried about the people on our shores who are dying of drug overdoses. They're never worried about the girls who are getting beaten by boys in sports. They're never worried about we keep going with that one, the girl who has to pee next to a dude in a dress in a bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. So what's Chuck concerned about? Yeah, it's the guy who got blown up on the boat for bringing drugs to America.
And we had a deeply unsatisfying briefing this morning with Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth. It asked more questions than it answered, and it was just, look, there is almost no transparency in this administration, and that reveals itself more than anything on revealing what happened on September 2nd. This morning I demanded in front of every senator, to Hegseth's face, that he let every senator see the unedited video of what happened on September 2nd. I've seen it. It turns your stomach. It is awful, and people should see it. What the hell is Hegseth hiding? But it's also important because what's going on in the Caribbean is unprecedented.
Joseph, can you find me a video? Let's see. Let's try to give the devil his due here. That's what we do at the Room Work. Can you find a video of Chuck Schumer saying that it makes him sick to his stomach that there are thousands of Americans dying of fentanyl in our streets? Sick to the stomach. Is there any time that he walked out in San Francisco and maybe just didn't have security with him and wandered through the zombie apocalypse over there? So again, it makes him sick to his stomach that two guys who were survivors from the initial explosion then died in a double tap. Now, I sat down with, it was about a dozen senators and congressmen yesterday, several who had just come from a meeting about this. I don't want to quote all of them, but I'll loosely quote John Kennedy. We're going to show you some video of him in just a second. And he said he was fully confident that what the U.S. government did was legal. And by the way, that is secondary from what my position on this has been, which is, I understand we have to be better than our enemies. We have to have standard operating procedures. We should have a legal system in place to make sure we don't have rogue soldiers and everything else. But my broad blue sky version of this is that this is just an 80-20 win for Trump. Congratulations, Chuck Schumer. Once again, like you always caring about MS-13 gang members instead of the women who they kill, you guys can care about drug dealers instead of our own citizens who are dying of the drugs. Here is Senator Markwayne Mullin calling out Democrat critics for being total hypocrites because they didn't have a problem when Barack Obama was issuing, 500 drone strikes, and we killed about 3,700 people across the world.
Let's talk about the whole picture here as a whole. Guys, I'm losing patience on the whole thing because I think it's ridiculous that we're having this conversation because underneath Obama, he had 500 strikes, 3,700 different individuals were killed. There wasn't a big show about this. What you guys are all upset about is the hemisphere that it's working in. The hemisphere is these are drug terrorist organizations. The same people that Obama went after, some people we've been over for the last 24 years, were terrorist organizations that were wanting to kill Americans. There has been more Americans killed because of these terrorist cartels drugging our streets, drugging every one of your all streets, every one of your all's towns, every one of the audience's towns. They've killed more people in 2024 on our streets than we lost in the entire Vietnam War for U.S. personnel. These are terrorist organizations that are poisoning our streets. The president has the authority to do so. The argument is it's too close to our shores. Does anybody doubt that these are terrorist organizations? Does anybody have a question about these being terrorist organizations? So what's the difference between Obama attacking these individuals when they were deemed terrorist organizations in the Middle East versus the ones that are here right now poisoning our streets?
So he's doing a nice job there, of course, pointing out the hypocrisy. And if it's a Democrat administration, you can get away with any of this. And why don't the Democrats care when our own people die and all that stuff? But as I said last week, it's like, guys, if I just hopped in a boat, Connor, you want to rent a boat today? What do you say, me and you hop in a boat? Can you stop at the warehouse and get all that fentanyl you've been moving on the DL? Said too much. And if we just got on a boat and we just zoomed to pick any country, would it be the responsibility of that country to keep us alive as they were trying to stop the drugs from coming into their country? I mean, we can have some sort of debate about that. Here's Senator John Kennedy. This was just like an hour or two after I sat down with him, talking about the people that are criticizing the president and his actions.
I think some of the people who are criticizing the president are in good faith, but a lot of them are just, they're just masterclass dumb. I mean, what the president is doing is perfectly legal, whether you agree with it or not. Another thing, but it's perfectly illegal under the Constitution, and a lot of the people criticizing him, well, if you wanted to hide something from him, you just put it in a law book, especially the chapter on the Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should watch our interview with John Kennedy, which will be up in a couple of days, where he fully expounds on that a bit further. But we know that this, I just think this is a win. We don't know. My gut feeling is this is just a win for the Republicans. We are stopping bad people from coming in, and we're exposing the Democrats for always caring more about the bad people than Americans. We're going to talk about lean for just a second, and then there's just more interesting stuff around corruption, one-way corruption. When the Democrats do things, you can get away with it. When Republicans do things, you can't. We'll connect that to the Mar-a-Lago raid, which now we're finding out was basically completely fraudulent. Just a sec, but first, here's lean. Doctors call it weight cycling, and half of Americans experience it. The pattern's familiar. You lose 10 or so pounds only to gain them right back. Over time, this back and forth puts tremendous strain on your organs, raising the risk of diabetes, liver damage, heart attack, and stroke. Most people need help to break the cycle, and that's where Lean comes in. Created by doctors, Lean is a non-prescription oral supplement, not a GLP-1 injectable, and its science is impressive. Its carefully studied ingredients are designed to help maintain healthy blood sugar, control appetite and cravings, cravings and burn fat by converting it into energy. And by burning fat, lean makes it easier to lose weight at a healthy pace and keep it off for good. If you're ready to stop weight cycling and finally sustain your results, add lean to your diet and exercise routine. Get 20% off today when you enter code Rubin at takelean.com. All right, so this story is just wild. You guys all remember the Mar-a-Lago raid from about 3 years ago when they claimed that, well, they bust into Donald Trump's home, right? It is a country club and Donald Trump's home, claiming that he was not properly storing classified documents, that he had taken things that the White House, that he was not allowed to take from the White House. Meanwhile, Joe Biden had all sorts of classified documents in a garage next to the car. You remember that image. But listen to this from Fox. The FBI did not believe it had probable cause to raid President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in 22, but moved forward amid pressure from the Biden Justice Department with an official saying he didn't give a damn about the optics of the search, newly declassified documents reviewed by Fox News Digital reveal. Fox News Digital reviewed emails between FBI and Justice Department officials in the months leading up to August 22 raid of Mar-a-Lago, with FBI officials expressing concerns about a lack of probable cause to execute the search warrant on the then former president's residence in Palm Beach, Florida. Weeks later, an FBI agent writes in an email stating, "We haven't generated any new facts, but keep being given draft after draft after draft." Absent a witness coming forward with recent information about classified on site, at what point is it fair to table this? The agent writes. It is time consuming for the team and not productive if there are no new facts supporting probable cause. Another email revealed that the FBI's Washington field office did not believe and had articulated to DOJ that we have established probable cause for the search warrant for classified records at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, this is a massive scandal, right? Like, this is the Justice Department of the United States going after the once and future president of the United States in a way that their own agents were saying there is not enough evidence to do. Here's then Attorney General Merrick Garland.
Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence.
Except everything you just said there is not how you behaved as it pertained to Trump. You had your own FBI saying there isn't probable cause here. Is there any new information? And then the DOJ superseded that and said, go in there and harass them and go into the guy's house and everything else. Completely unprecedented, had never been done before and hopefully will never be done again. This is a bit of a jump, but I thought this was quite interesting yesterday. Here's Donald Trump talking about how he's considering reclassifying marijuana. So right now they want to maybe change the schedule on this so that marijuana could be opened up to help people with all sorts of different medical conditions. Take a look.
Is it accurate that you are considering an executive order to reclassify marijuana as a controlled
We are considering that, yeah.
Okay, are you planning?
Because a lot of people want to see it, the reclassification, because it leads to tremendous amounts of research that can't be done unless you reclassify. So we are looking at that very strongly.
Okay, so what he's referring to there is that they would potentially move marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 under the U.S. Controlled Substances Act. That would allow for more marijuana-related research and a whole bunch of other stuff. Without diving too much into a marijuana debate there, my general feeling is that you leave marijuana and legality up to the states. You know, obviously there are places like California where it's recreationally legal, or you can go to New York where it's recreationally legal, and it smells like marijuana basically all over the city at all times. Some places it's not, you know, a place like Florida, it's medicinally legal. So if you have a problem, you have a back problem, you have anxiety, you have glaucoma, whatever it might be, you can go to a doctor and you can get a medical marijuana license that lasts for about a year. And that's at least some way of keeping it somewhat off the street. To me, the recreational thing, even though I'm very libertarian minded, and I know you can make the argument that alcohol is more damaging than marijuana, there is something to the slippery slope argument around all of this stuff. And Anyway, all of that being said, Trump is doing it for the purposes of medical research, which seems good. But what's particularly interesting about this is this might be another one that he's going to steal from the Democrats, because the progressives for years have been saying decriminalize and let's change the classification for research purposes and everything else. And Trump might just grab that card away from them. Here's Harry Enton over on CNN.
That the president could use, in fact, against his Democratic opposition and say, hey, you know what? Democrats have talked the talk, but I'm actually going to walk the walk when it comes to legalizing marijuana.
Okay, so what are the prediction markets saying about the chances then here?
Yeah, okay, so what's the chance that this actually happens? I think there's a pretty gosh darn good chance it's going to happen, at least according to the prediction markets. So the chance that the U.S. reschedules marijuana before the end of Trump's term, look at this, 88%. I think that makes a lot of sense when the President of the United States says that he's strongly, or was it very strongly?
Very strongly.
Very strongly, very strong words from the President, very strongly considering rescheduling marijuana. At this point, it looks like about 9 in 10 of those who are putting their money where their mouth is say it will happen before the end of Trump's term. But of course, Kate Baldwin, we'll just have to wait.
Well, yes.
Right. So look, regardless of whether you like marijuana, don't like marijuana, you want it recreationally legal or medicinally legal, or whatever your position is on that, there absolutely has been a generational shift on this. And the strange position that we are in right now, because since they haven't reclassified it, it's still illegal federally. So when I lived in California, for example, where there were weed shops everywhere, they were legal because California made it legal, but federally it was illegal. So you could walk in and buy marijuana, but then the next day the store might be closed by the feds. So that sort of asymmetry doesn't seem good to me. Do I think this is something that needs to be federally mandated and that it should be legal federally? No, this is where you leave as much as possible to the states and let the states decide. And if you live in a place that doesn't want medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, but you put marijuana in your top 3 on your hierarchy of importance, then go move to Colorado, right? Like that's the beauty of our system. We will talk a bit more about some other good things Trump is doing, including a new travel ban. But first, Tax Network USA. Do you owe back taxes or haven't even filed in years? Now's the time to resolve your tax issues. With the national debate around abolishing the income tax system, the IRS is pushing back by becoming more aggressive than ever. They're sending more collection notices, filing more tax liens, and collecting billions more than in recent years. If you owe or you haven't filed, it's not a matter of if the IRS will act, it's when. Right now, Tax Network USA is offering a completely free IRS research and discovery call to show you exactly where you stand. Their programs and strategies can save you thousands or even eliminate your debt entirely if you qualify. Don't make the mistake of trying to handle the IRS on your own. Representing yourself or calling them directly can waive your rights and cost you significantly more. The IRS is not on your side, but Tax Network USA is. Get the protection you need and start resolving your tax matters once and for all. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave for your free discovery call. Don't let the IRS be the first to act. Okay, so away from marijuana, whatever your feelings are on getting stoned and watching The Simpsons, that's for the little bit that I smoke, like that's pretty much it. That's as exciting as it gets, ladles and jelly spoons. One thing that Trump absolutely is doing wonderfully is that he has closed the border. He sent the signal to the world, stop coming. We're trying to figure out what's going on here. We're doing the deportations, about 700,000 people so far. We got a long, long way to go. But now he has also expanded his travel ban to 5 new countries. Well, it's actually 4 new countries and the Palestinian territories, but take a look.
Jackie, today the president further restricted entry of foreign nationals into the U.S. What do we know about that?
Yeah, the president's proclamation expands the administration's existing 12-country travel ban to 5 new countries and also to people with documents from the Palestinian Authority. It also adds partial restrictions to 15 countries, most of them in Africa. The White House cited widespread corruption, fraud, and unreliable documentation and records from those countries as the cause. And it comes after the administration pledged to crack down following the shooting of 2 National Guard soldiers by the White House by an Afghan national, Brad.
Right. So this is, look, it's completely consistent with everything else Trump is doing. We've got a little more context here from End Wokeness. Trump just unveiled his new travel ban. And here are all of the countries that have, as you can see on the left side of that, full U.S. entry ban, which includes Afghanistan and Iran and Libya and Somalia and Sudan and Yemen, et cetera, et cetera. Then there are countries with partial restrictions. And again, we have every right, just like every single one of these countries that are sovereign nations have a right to decide what their policies are. And some of the ones with partial restrictions, Sierra Leone, Turkmenistan, Venezuela, Angola, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the, can you give me the new ones again there? We just moved past. The 5 new countries plus the Palestinian territories. It's Mali, Syria, Niger, South Sudan, Burkina Faso, and then the Palestinian territory. So we have every right to do this. We have to figure out what's going on in our country. We now know that we have all sorts of not only illegals here, but homegrown people who have wildly antithetical views to our foundational ideas of freedom and individual rights and plurality and all of those things. And Trump is trying to do something about it. The other thing he's trying to do something about, and this will probably be his biggest fight more than anything else, because maybe this is what the fight was about the entire time. Trump, here he is yesterday at the White House talking about how we must stand up against radical Islamic terror.
The love and prayers to our entire nation, to the people of Australia, and especially all those affected by the horrific and anti-Semitic terrorist attack, and that's exactly what it is, anti-Semitic, that took place on a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney. What a terrible, terrible thing. We don't learn. We're joined in mourning all of those who were killed, and we're praying for the swift recovery of the wounded. Some are very horrifically wounded, as you probably know. All nations must stand together against the evil forces of radical Islamic terrorism, and we're doing that.
That wasn't my video, but that was actually at the event that I was at yesterday. So, there's a huge debate now in Australia. And we showed you some video yesterday of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese saying, well, now we are going to take the guns. This is in a place that it is extremely hard to get a gun, and his government, his Labour, lefty, in essence, progressive government, they've decided the guns are the problem here. They might want to look at this and think if this is a problem, this is Melbourne, Australia, just over the last couple of days. Okay, I'm not telling you every one of those people is horrible, but does Australia have any, is it on Australia to have to bring in people who don't seem to be Australian? Do those people care about really being Australian the way any of us think of Australia, whether it's Crocodile Dundee or Bluey or Mad Max or whatever? Right? Like, Australia has a right to defend itself. And I am telling you guys that when we were there in Melbourne, particularly, that was Melbourne, but Melbourne particularly, and also in Brisbane, a little bit less in Sydney, which is ironic because Sydney is where this horrific terrorist attack just took place. There were on many, many corners booths to convert people to Islam, and people that were coming up to you in the streets and trying to hand you a Quran and all of these things. What does that have to do with being Australian? Now, Australia can be sympathetic or tolerant of any religion, but this is the great challenge of our time. And I would just wonder, with the very people there who were on their knees in Melbourne, those thousands and thousands of people who fled countries that forced them to behave like that, and now they are trying to spread that in these Western countries. It's funny because there are how many Islamic nations are there? I think it's 57, if I'm not mistaken. I think there are 57 Islamic nations. And if you go to any Islamic nation, are there Christian preachers on every corner trying to convert people to Christianity? Not if they want to keep their heads. How's it going for Jews or atheists or Baha'i or anything else? Yeah, there are 57 Islamic nations. So the tolerance and decency only goes one way here. James Woods, actor James Woods, great actor who's in, what are the best 3? I'm going to try this. Best 3 James Woods movies. He crushed it in Casino. Remember, he was the drug addict, bookie guy who was banging Sharon Stone on the side. He was in one of, if not my favorite movie of all time, Contact. He plays the Secretary of Defense. What's another great James Brooks movie? He was also in a couple of the Scary movies. What's another great James Brooks? Not James Brooks. What's another... I said Casino. Well, Once Upon a Time in America, which is an amazing movie. Yeah. Anyway, here is James Woods, not James Brooks, on Fox last night, issuing a warning about worldwide jihad.
Look, I'm a Roman Catholic. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I say to all of them, you've got to be careful. There is now a jihad against Jews in the world, and people are just upfront about it. They're just saying it. There's, this country over the past 4 years, and, I don't want to get into politics, I want to talk about Rob, but, there has been an invasion in this country that if you look at Europe and see how far ahead the invasion is progressing there, that is going to end this country as we know it.
And he's right. And we all know it. And I always say it, we don't want to be Europe. And if you were the average citizen in Berlin right now, or in London, or in Brussels, and you could go back 20 years and not do all of the mistakes that led you to bringing in an invading population who is breeding faster than you, who don't seem to care about your ideals, would you do things a little bit differently? And the obvious answer to that is yes. And so the perverse part is that what most politicians do is never let a tragedy go to waste. So now in Australia, you've got Albanese saying, okay, we're going to take the guns. Well, guys, guess what? That could happen right here too. Here is outgoing, hallelujah, outgoing Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi talking about her biggest career disappointment, and it's that she didn't take more guns.
So that's your proudest achievement. What's been your biggest disappointment?
My disappointment, I always have it, and I'll never give up on it, is guns. A four-letter word, guns. Guns. That children would be dying in a classroom, that families, just the saddest thing. But it's about two things. That politicians should think that their political survival is more important than the survival of children and families in our country. And that the gun industry, I'm not talking about lobbyists here, no, I'm talking about the gun industry with endless big money just deciding that they are going to have it their way at the cost of lives in our country so they can make a profit.
What a terrible person who will not be missed. But don't worry, lady, when you retire, you're worth a good, how much is she worth? It's like hundreds of millions of dollars, and she trades 7,000% or something over what the average amazing day trader does. You will not be missed, lady. She's worth $281 million. You can spend the rest of your life getting facelifts and doing Botox, lady. You're going to be just fine. I know you seem to really care about children. I would stay away from children in dim lighting. You could really freak somebody out. But the point here is her regret is that they didn't take enough guns. Lady, did you know that for all the years that you've been in Congress, you swore on the Constitution to protect the Constitution? Well, you probably swore on the Bible to protect the Constitution of the United States of America. And do you know about the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment? It is something you're just terrible. And a gun is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. Yes, you can do awful things with it, but you can also do great things with it. So it has to do with ideology and spirit and what's going on in your mind, not the actual tool itself. Matt Van Swol, who's an ex-commentator, this is a guy who's sort of like me. He was on the left for many years. He's had his own wake-up. He wrote this. I thought it was quite good. Everyone on the left discussing gun control refuses to ever consider that if we just locked up all violent criminals, the majority of violent crime would disappear overnight. It's not the guns, it's the violent criminals, and the left keeps letting them out of prison. So what you're looking at there, and for those of you that are listening on the audio podcast as you're watching the numbers drop, what you're seeing is that the graph's showing that if people are locked up after one offense, the percentage of violent crime prevented is 80%, because it's not an endlessly a long list of people that are committing all of these crimes. Often it's people that are committing crimes over and over and over. And actually, if you don't have a rotating policy, you just beat up some old lady on the street, you had your reasons, we'll slap you on the wrist and get back out today. If you actually punish people, then there is more incentive not to do bad things. Sort of like, you're on a boat with fentanyl heading to Florida, we're gonna blow you up. Well, your buddy might not consider doing it. As it pertains to all of this, the guys showed me this. I'm not a big rap guy. I enjoyed the Rapper's Delight with the hip hop, a dippity dop, whatever that was, but I'm not a big rap guy. But apparently there's this guy named 21 Savage. I don't know if that was his given name or it's a stage name. But here he is with, I think, another rapper doing a podcast. And they talk about how they should just move all of the gangsters into their own city so that they could basically recreate Call of Duty and they could all kill each other. The team thought this was applicable to what we're doing today.
But they need to build a city called Crash Out City. And if your ass is so gangster and you so crazy, especially the rappers, I'm mainly talking to the rappers. Trump need to make a motherfucking city for these. I know we got some land somewhere in America that ain't nobody using, where they test bombs and shit at. We're gonna call this Crash Out City. We're gonna come pick all y'all up who y'all wanna crash and y'all hate y'all ops that bad or y'all just hate the world that bad. We're gonna pick all y'all up, put y'all on a plane, and we're gonna fly y'all to Crash Out City. When you get there, this like Call of Duty. It's AR. No, dead serious. You go in the house, the gun right there. You got to go find the clip, find the bullets, and you come outside. Yeah, everybody just crash.
I like that guy. Put him on the panel show on CNN. Like, okay, you guys want to shoot everybody and do all that stuff? Take all the gangsters, take all the rappers. We've got some land somewhere in the middle of Utah or something. Drop them there. Crash Out City. Okay, that's fine. Let them take each other out. I thought to end the show today, since I don't know this 21 Savage, and yet he obviously has a great political mind. The guys gave me a little bit of his lyrics from his song No Heart. And I'll just read them to you here. I'm reading them for the first time here. I sit back and read like Cat in the Hat. 21 Savage, the cat with the Mac. 21 Savage, not boys in the hood, but I pull up on you, shoot your ass in the back. Stuart Little heard these, I can't say that word, some rats, pocket full of cheese, bitch. I got rats, I'm a real street, that word, bitch. I am not one of these, that word, banging on wax pussy, that word, love sneak dissing till I pull up on them, slap them out with fire, wet your mama's house, wet your grandma's house, keep shooting until somebody dies. So many shots, the neighbor looked at the calendar, thought it was 4th of July. Wow, he really tied that thing together. And you guys all almost lost your jobs had I read that wrong. Thank you for watching the program. As I always say, I like Frank Sinatra. Post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com, 30 seconds.